The soft, golden light of early morning always felt like comfort to Martha Ellington. At 65, she lived alone in a modest blue-painted house on the outskirts of Boise, Idaho, where pine trees lined the back fence and wind chimes whispered every time a breeze passed through. Each morning, she brewed herself a cup of chamomile tea and sat by the window, watching the neighborhood children run to catch the school bus. She used to wave to them from her porch, the same way she waved to her students years ago when she taught third grade. Teaching had been her life for 40 years. She believed patience and kindness could fix almost anything. After retiring, she'd imagined her days would pass quietly: books, baking, and an occasional visit from her children, Clara and Nathan. Her husband, Robert, had been gone for nearly a decade. His absence still echoed through the house. The creak of his old rocking chair, the faint smell of the tobacco pipe he loved. Sometimes Martha spoke to his photograph that sat on the mantel. "You'd be proud of them," she'd whisper. "They turned out good, didn't they?" Clara, the eldest, had become a nurse, steady and reliable. She called every evening, never missing a Sunday dinner. Nathan, her younger one, had always been the dreamer, the kind of boy who believed one lucky break could change everything. After Robert's death, Martha had leaned on both of them to find strength. She thought they leaned on her too. Life had slowed into a gentle rhythm. Gardening in the mornings, volunteering at the local library twice a week, baking for the neighbors on Fridays. It was the kind of peace she thought she'd earned after a lifetime of service. She rarely expected surprises now. Her heart, though marked by loss, was content. But that morning, as the chimes clinked softly and the kettle hissed, a restlessness crept in, a strange, quiet unease that made her pause mid-sip. She didn't know it then, but her calm little world was about to tremble in a way she never imagined. Later that afternoon, Clara came by unexpectedly. She looked tired. Her hospital scrubs wrinkled. Her hair pulled into a messy bun, eyes red as though she'd been crying. Martha welcomed her in with a smile. "Rough day?" she asked, pouring her daughter a cup of tea. Clara didn't answer right away. Instead, she sat at the kitchen table, fingers trembling against the cup. "Mum," she said finally, "I need to tell you something about Nathan." Martha's heart stilled. She set down her cup slowly. "What about him?" Clara inhaled shakily. "He took money from Dad's investment account." "All of it?" Hadn't heard right. "What do you mean, took?" "He has access, but he wouldn't—" "I checked with the bank," Clara cut in, voice breaking. "It's gone. Transferred into his business account 3 weeks ago. He didn't tell you because he knew you'd stop him." Martha felt her throat tighten. Nathan had always been impulsive, but dishonest. That wasn't her boy. She stood, pacing the floor. There must be an explanation. Maybe it's temporary. Maybe he's planning something good. "Mum," Clara said quietly, "you've always believed that. But this time it's different." Tears welled up in Martha's eyes. She remembered the night Robert died, how Nathan held her hand and promised he'd take care of her. He was 25 then, full of dreams, terrified of failing. She had believed that promise was unbreakable. Clara reached across the table and squeezed her mother's hand. "I'm sorry, Mum. I didn't want to be the one to tell you." Martha nodded, though her heart felt heavy and confused. "I'll talk to him," she whispered. "He'll explain everything." "You'll see." But deep down, fear had already taken root. That evening, the house was too quiet. Martha dialed Nathan's number with trembling fingers. The call rang twice before he answered. "Hey, Mom," he said, voice cheerful, a little forced. "Hi, sweetheart," she began softly. "Clara came over today." Silence. She told me something that can't be true, Martha continued. She said you took money from the investment account. Is that right? Nathan hesitated, then sighed. Mom, I was going to tell you. I just needed it for a short while. My startup hit a rough patch. I'll pay it back, I promise. Martha pressed her hand to her forehead. You should have asked me, Nathan. That account was for your father's memory, for emergencies. I know, Mum, he said quickly, but this is just a loan. Once the deal goes through, we'll all be better off, the words felt rehearsed. Her son's voice, once so full of warmth, now sounded like a stranger's. She wanted to believe him, but there was a hollowness behind his tone. Nathan, she whispered, are you in trouble? There was a pause too long to ignore. It's fine, Mom, he muttered. Don't worry. After the call ended, Martha stood by the window for a long time, watching the streetlights flicker on. A part of her wanted to trust him like she always had, but another part, the quiet voice she had ignored for years, told her something was very wrong. When she turned off the lights that night, the wind outside howled through the chimney. For the first time in years, she prayed not for peace, but for strength. The next few days passed in uneasy silence. Clara checked on her daily, trying to distract her with errands and gossip from the hospital, but Martha's thoughts stayed fixed on Nathan. She hadn't heard from him since that call. On Friday evening, she received a letter from the bank, confirmation of a full withdrawal from the joint family account. Her hands shook as she read the numbers. It was nearly everything her husband had left behind. Her knees gave way, and she sank into Robert's old rocking chair. Why, Nathan? She whispered, voice breaking. Why would you do this to us? That night, Clara came by again, bringing dinner, but Martha couldn't eat. He'll ruin himself, she said quietly, and maybe us with him. Clara looked at her, eyes sharp with frustration. You can't keep defending him, Mum. He knew what he was doing. He took advantage of your trust. Martha flinched. He's still my son. And I'm still your daughter, Clara snapped. But you never see me when he's in trouble. You only see him. Her words hit like stones. The kitchen fell silent, except for the hum of the refrigerator. Clara wiped her tears and left soon after, leaving Martha alone with guilt and confusion. Outside, the wind rattled the windows. She thought of her students again, how easily children forgave one another after fights, how grown-ups forgot that skill. She wished she could call Robert and ask what to do. But all she had was silence, and 2 children who now seemed oceans apart. Days turned into a blur of sleepless nights and anxious mornings. Martha wandered through her routines without meaning, watering the plants, sorting mail, folding laundry that didn't need folding. She kept checking her phone, hoping Nathan would call, hoping Clara would forgive her silence. Neither did. One afternoon, she found an old photo album in the closet. In it were pictures of birthdays, picnics, scraped knees, and laughter. Nathan with missing teeth, Clara holding her first report card, Robert flipping burgers on the grill. The faces smiled back from a time when love was simple and trust unquestioned. Tears blurred her vision. Where did we go wrong? She murmured. That evening she sat by the window, rain drumming softly against the glass. Her phone finally buzzed. Nathan's name appeared on the screen. She hesitated, then answered. Mom, he said quietly. I messed up. Martha didn't speak. She just listened. His voice cracked as he admitted that the investment he'd made collapsed, that he'd borrowed from friends, that he was drowning in debt. I thought I could fix it before anyone found out, he whispered. I'm sorry. Her eyes filled with tears, but not just sadness, something deeper, older. Oh, Nathan, she said softly. You don't fix things by hiding them. You face them. When the call ended, She sat still for a long time. The betrayal hurt, yes, but behind it, she now saw fear, desperation, and shame. And somewhere beneath her disappointment, a mother's instinct to protect began stirring again. She didn't know what she would do next, only that she couldn't let. Clara snapped. But you never see me when he's in trouble. You only see him. Her words hit like stones. The kitchen fell silent, except for the hum of the refrigerator. Clara wiped her tears and left soon after, leaving Martha alone with guilt and confusion. Outside, the wind rattled the windows. She thought of her students again, how easily children forgave one another after fights, how grown-ups forgot that skill. She wished she could call Robert and ask what to do, but all she had was silence, and two children who now seemed oceans apart. Days turned into a blur of sleepless nights and anxious mornings. Martha wandered through her routines without meaning, watering the plants, sorting mail, folding laundry that didn't need folding. She kept checking her phone, hoping Nathan would call, hoping Clara would forgive her silence. Neither did. One afternoon, she found an old photo album in the closet. In it were pictures of birthdays, picnics, scraped knees, and laughter. Nathan with missing teeth, Clara holding her first report card, Robert flipping burgers on the grill. The faces smiled back from a time when love was simple and trust unquestioned. Tears blurred her vision. Where did we go wrong? She murmured. That evening she sat by the window, rain drumming softly against the glass. Her phone finally buzzed. Nathan's name appeared on the screen. She hesitated, then answered. Mom, he said quietly. I messed up. Martha didn't speak. She just listened. His voice cracked as he admitted that the investment he'd made collapsed, that he'd borrowed from friends, that he was drowning in debt. I thought I could fix it before anyone found out, he whispered. I'm sorry. Her eyes filled with tears, but not just sadness, something deeper, older. Oh, Nathan, she said softly, you don't fix things by hiding them. You face them. When the call ended, she sat still for a long time. The betrayal hurt, yes, but behind it, she now saw fear, desperation, and shame. And somewhere beneath her disappointment, a mother's instinct to protect began stirring again. She didn't know what she would do next, only that she couldn't let her family stay broken forever. The night outside was dark, but she felt the faintest spark of resolve flicker within her. It was a cold evening in February when my phone rang. The sound pierced through the silence of my small living room. I glanced at the caller ID. It was Daniel. My heart leapt for a second, foolishly hoping maybe he was calling to apologize or check in on me, but his tone was brisk, detached. Mum, I just wanted to let you know we're selling the old family cabin next week. It's too much maintenance. For a moment, I couldn't breathe. The cabin, it wasn't just wood and walls. It was where I'd spent summers with my late husband, where Daniel and Lily learned to fish, where every inch smelled like cinnamon pancakes and laughter. Daniel, I said softly, trying to steady my voice. That cabin is your father's memory. How can you sell it? He sighed impatiently. Mum, it's just property. Lily and I agreed. We need the money. The word money felt like poison in my ears. I wanted to scream, to beg, to remind them that love and memories can't be priced. But my throat closed. All right, I whispered. Do what you think is right. When the call ended, I sat in the dark for hours. Outside, snowflakes drifted against the window like soft ashes of the past. My hands trembled as I looked at an old photograph on the mantel. My husband holding Daniel and Lily as kids, all three of them smiling in that very cabin. I realized something terrifying. My children weren't just drifting away from me. They were erasing the very roots of our family. That night, I made a decision. If they could forget the meaning of family, I'd have to remind them in a way they'd never forget. The next morning, I stood before the mirror, studying the woman staring back, wrinkled, tired, but not defeated. For years, I had defined myself by motherhood. I'd cooked, cleaned, sacrificed, and forgiven. But now, I saw something new in my reflection, a flicker of strength I thought I'd lost when my husband died. I picked up the phone and called the realtor myself. "This is Margaret Hayes," I said firmly. "Cancel the sale. The cabin's under my name, and it's not going anywhere." My voice didn't shake. Not once. Later that day, Daniel called again, furious. "Mom, you can't do this. You're ruining everything." I took a deep breath. "Daniel, I love you. But if selling your father's memory is what you call everything, then maybe I'm not the one ruining it." Silence. Then a click. He hung up. I sat down, tears welling, but I didn't crumble this time. Instead, I smiled faintly. Sometimes standing up for love means standing alone. That week, I began writing a letter, not to Daniel or Lily, but to myself. I wrote about my fears, my loneliness, and the quiet ache of being forgotten by your own children. I wrote about the nights I sat awake, replaying every choice I made as a mother. Did I love too much? Did I forgive too quickly? But as I wrote, the pain turned into clarity. I realized I had given my children everything except one thing, the strength to value love over convenience. I folded the letter, sealed it in an envelope, and tucked it inside my Bible. "Someday," I whispered, "they'll find this. And maybe they'll understand." That letter became my silent prayer, that one day my children would remember not what I gave them, but who I was. A month later, Daniel showed up at my doorstep. His face was cold, his eyes tired. "Mom," he started, "Lily and I aren't on speaking terms anymore." She thinks I pushed the sale too hard. I gestured for him to come inside. He didn't. Instead, he said, "I lost my job last week. The cabin money was supposed to help. I don't know what to do." My heart softened, but I stayed calm. "Son, maybe losing what you wanted is how you learn what you need." He looked down, ashamed. For the first time, he didn't argue. He just stood there, silent in the falling rain. I handed him a warm coat, his father's old one. "You can stay here tonight if you want," I said. He hesitated, then nodded. That night, we talked for hours about his childhood, his mistakes, and how grief can make people forget love. When he finally fell, asleep on the couch, I watched him and thought, he's still my boy, just lost in his own storm. 2 weeks later, Lily came home too. She looked thinner, quieter. "Mum," she said, her voice breaking, "Daniel told me everything." "I'm so sorry for how we treated you." I took her hands gently. "We all lose our way sometimes. The important thing is that we find it again." Tears streamed down her face as she hugged me. It wasn't just a hug. It was a bridge rebuilt. Daniel joined us moments later, and for the first time in years, the house felt alive again. That night, I made my husband's favorite dinner, chicken pot pie, and as the three of us sat around the table, laughter returned. Not the loud kind, but soft, healing laughter that fills the cracks pain leaves behind. I realized something profound. Forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting what happened. It means choosing peace over pain. As the candlelight flickered, I whispered silently to my husband's memory, "We're whole again." One quiet morning, while I was out in the garden, Lily came across the old letter I had written months ago, the one I had tucked inside my Bible. When I returned, she was sitting on the couch, the letter trembling in her hands, tears streaking her cheeks. "Mum," she whispered, "you wrote this." I nodded slowly, unsure of what to say. Daniel stood behind her, silent, his expression unreadable. Lily read aloud, her voice cracking. I just hope one day my children understand that love isn't a transaction. It's a choice, a promise we keep even when it hurts. The room was still. Even the ticking clock seemed to pause. Daniel sat down beside me. Mum, we didn't deserve you, he said softly. You were right. We lost sight of what mattered. I felt my eyes sting with tears, but my heart, my old bruised heart, felt lighter than it had in years. You don't need to deserve me, I said. You just need to come home. We sat there together, the three of us, holding hands. That letter, once written out of pain, became the bridge that finally healed us. Weeks later, we drove to the cabin together, Daniel, Lily, and I. The road was long, winding through golden fields and rustling pines. When the cabin finally appeared through the trees, I felt tears rise again. The porch still creaked the same way. The air still smelled like pine and nostalgia. Only now, instead of loneliness, I felt warmth. Lily took out a framed photo of her father and placed it above the fireplace. This is where he belongs, she said softly. Daniel looked around quietly. I forgot how much this place meant to us, he admitted. I can almost hear Dad's laugh. I smiled faintly. He never really left, Daniel. He's been here all along, just waiting for us to come back. We spent the evening fixing small things, cooking, sharing stories, and laughing. It felt like the cabin had been waiting all this time, not for repair, but for reconciliation. Before we left, I whispered to the trees outside, "We're home again, love." A month later, Daniel and Lily came to visit me in the city. They brought a small, wrapped box and placed it on my kitchen table. "Open it," Daniel said, his eyes shining. Inside was a delicate golden pendant, a heart locket. Inside the locket were 3 tiny photos, one of me, one of Daniel, and one of Lily. "It's our family," Lily said, smiling through tears. "No matter what happens, this will always remind us where we come from." For a moment, I couldn't speak. My throat tightened. I just reached across the table and held both their hands. "I don't need gifts," I whispered, "but I'll treasure this because it means you remember." That small pendant became my most precious possession, not because it sparkled, but because it symbolized the love that had once been broken and mended again. A few weeks later, my doorbell rang again. It was a young woman holding a bouquet of sunflowers. "Mrs. Hayes?" she asked politely. "My name's Emma. I just moved in next door. Daniel told me about you." I smiled warmly, inviting her in. "Over tea," she said quietly. "He told me you're the strongest woman he knows." My heart swelled with a quiet pride. For years, I'd felt invisible, forgotten even by those I loved most. Now, my story was reaching others, helping them see that it's never too late to rebuild love. When Emma left, I looked at the photo of my husband on the wall and whispered, "They finally see me, don't they?" The house, once silent, now echoed with laughter, visits, and warmth again. Love had returned, not just through my children, but through the kindness it inspired. It's been 3 years since that dark time. The cabin still stands, stronger than ever. Daniel brings his own children there now, and Lily often joins us on weekends. Sometimes I sit on the porch, watching the sunset dip behind the trees, and I think about everything that's happened. The betrayal, the pain, the healing. If life has taught me anything, it's this. Love doesn't fade when people hurt you. It only fades when you stop choosing it. We all stumble. We all lose our way. But forgiveness, true forgiveness, can turn the most broken moments into blessings. As I watch my grandchildren chasing fireflies in the dusk, I whisper to myself, maybe I was never just meant to survive the storm. Maybe I was meant to show them how to dance in the rain. And with that, I finally understand peace. YouTube outro for automatic inclusion at the end. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Tell me in the comments, what did you learn from Margaret's story? Because sometimes healing begins with just one story shared.